burned halfway down. The remaining half of it has marks cut upon it an inch apart. Soon I will tell you where I found these things. I will now put aside reasonings, guesses, the impressive hitchings of odds and ends of clues together, and the other showy theatricals of the detective trade, and tell you in a plain, straightforward way just how this dismal thing happened." He paused a moment, for effect, to allow silence and suspense to intensify and concentrate the house's interest. Then he went on: "The assassin studied out his plan with a good deal of pains. It was a good plan, very ingenious, and showed an intelligent mind, not a feeble one. It was a plan which was well calculated to ward off all suspicion from its inventor. In the first place, he marked a candle into spaces an inch apart, and lit it, and timed it. He found it took 3 hours to burn 4 inches of it. I tried it myself for half an hour, a while ago, upstairs here, while the inquiry into Flint Buckner's character and ways was being conducted in this room, and I arrived in that way at the rate of a candle's consumption when sheltered from the wind. Having proved his trial candle's rate, he blew it out, I have already shown it to you, and put his inch marks on a fresh one. He put the fresh one into a tin candlestick. Then at the 5-hour mark he bored a hole through the candle with a red-hot wire. I have already shown you the wire, with a smooth coat of tallow on it, tallow that had been melted and had cooled. With labor, very hard labor I should say, he struggled up through the stiff chaparral that closed the steep hillside back of Flint Buckner's place, tugging an empty flour barrel with him. He placed it in that absolutely secure hiding-place, and in the bottom of it he set the candlestick. Then he measured off about 35 feet of fuse, the barrel's distance from the back of the cabin. He bored a hole in the side of the barrel. Here is the large gimlet he did it with. He went on and finished his work, and when it was done, one end of the fuse was in Buckner's cabin, and the other end, with a notch chipped in it to expose the powder, was in the hole in the candle, timed to blow the place up at 1 o'clock this morning, provided the candle was lit about 8 o'clock yesterday evening, which I am betting it was, and provided there was an explosive in the cabin and connected with that end of the fuse, which I am also betting there was, though I can't prove it. Boys, the barrel is there in the chaparral. The candle's remains are in it in the tin stick. The burnt-out fuse is in the gimlet hole. The other end is down the hill where the late cabin stood. I saw them all an hour or 2 ago, when the professor here was measuring off unimplicated vacancies and collecting relics that hadn't anything to do with the case." He paused. The house drew a long, deep breath, shook its strained chords and muscles free, and burst into cheers. "Dang him," said Ham Sandwich. "That's why he was snooping around in the chaparral, instead of picking up points out of the professor's game. Looky here, he ain't no fool, boys." "No, sir. Why, great Scott!" But Stillman was resuming. "While we were out yonder an hour or 2 ago, the owner of the gimlet and the trial candle took them from a place where he had concealed them, it was not a good place, and carried them to what he probably thought was a better one, 200 yards up in the pine woods, and hid them there, covering them over with pine needles. It was there that I found them. The gimlet exactly fits the hole in the barrel. And now—" The extraordinary man interrupted him. He said, sarcastically, "We have had a very pretty fairy tale, gentlemen, very pretty indeed. Now I would like to ask this young man a question or two." Some of the boys winced, and Ferguson said, "I'm afraid Archy's going to catch it now." The others lost their smiles and sobered down, and Mr. Holmes said, "Let us proceed to examine into this fairy tale in a consecutive and orderly way, by geometrical progression, so to speak, linking detail to detail in a steadily advancing and remorselessly consistent and unassailable march upon this tinsel-toy fortress of error, the dream fabric of a callow imagination. To begin with, young sir, I desire to ask you but 3 questions at present. At present. Did I understand you to say it was your opinion that the supposititious candle was lighted at about 8 o'clock yesterday evening?" "Yes, sir, about 8." "Could you say exactly 8?" Well, no, I couldn't be that exact. Hmm. If a person had been passing along there just about that time, he would have been almost sure to encounter that assassin, do you think? Yes, I should think so. Thank you, that is all. For the present. I say all for the present. "Dern him, he's laying for Archy," said Ferguson. "It's so," said Ham Sandwich. "I don't like the look of it." Stillman said, glancing at the guest, "I was along there myself at half-past 8. No, about 9. "Indeed! This is interesting. This is very interesting. Perhaps you encountered the assassin yourself." "No, I encountered no one." "Ah, then, if you will excuse the remark, I do not quite see the relevancy of the information." "It has none, at present. I say it has none at present." He paused. Presently he resumed. "I did not encounter the assassin, but I am on his track, I am sure, for I believe he is in this room. I will ask you all to pass one by one in front of me, here, where there is a good light, so that I can see your feet." A buzz of excitement swept the place, and the march began, the guest looking on with an iron attempt at gravity which was not an unqualified success. Stillman stooped, shaded his eyes with his hand, and gazed down intently at each pair of feet as it passed. 50 men tramped monotonously by, with no result. 60, 70. The thing was beginning to look absurd. The guest remarked, with suave irony, "Assassins appear to be scarce this evening." The house saw the humor of it, and refreshed itself with a cordial laugh. 10 or 12 more candidates tramped by, no, danced by, with airy and ridiculous capers which convulsed the spectators. Then suddenly Stillman put out his hand and said, "This is the assassin." "Fetlock Jones, by the great Sanhedrin!" roared the crowd, and at once let fly a pyrotechnic explosion and dazzle and confusion of stirring remarks inspired by the situation. At the height of the turmoil the guest stretched out his hand commanding peace. The authority of a great name and a great personality laid its mysterious compulsion upon the house, and it obeyed. Out of the panting calm which succeeded, the guest spoke, saying, with dignity and feeling, "This is serious. It strikes at an innocent life. Innocent beyond suspicion. Innocent beyond peradventure. Hear me prove it. Observe how simple a fact can brush out of existence this witless lie. Listen. My friends, that lad was never out of my sight yesterday evening at any time." It made a deep impression. Men turned their eyes upon Stillman with grave inquiry in them. His face brightened, and he said, "I knew there was another one." He stepped briskly to the table and glanced at the guest's feet, then up at his face, and said, "You were with him. You were not 50 steps from him when he lit the candle that by and by fired the powder." Sensation. "And what is more, you furnished the matches yourself." Plainly the guest seemed hit. It looked so to the public. He opened his mouth to speak. The words did not come freely. "This is insanity. This—" Stillman pressed his evident advantage home. He held up a charred match. "Here is one of them. I found it in the barrel. And there's another one there." The guest found his voice at once. "Yes, and put them there yourself." It was recognized as a good shot. Stillman retorted, "It is wax, a breed unknown to this camp. I am ready to be searched for the box. Are you?" The guest was staggered this time. The dullest eye could see it. He fumbled with his hands. Once or twice his lips moved, but the words did not come. The house waited and watched, in tense suspense, the stillness adding effect to the situation. Presently Stillman said gently, "We are waiting for your decision." There was silence again during several moments. Then the guest answered in a low voice, "I refuse to be searched." There was no noisy demonstration, but all about the house one voice after another muttered, "That settles it. He's Archy's meat." What to do now? Nobody seemed to know. It was an embarrassing situation for the moment, merely, of course, because matters had taken such a sudden and unexpected turn that these unpracticed minds were not prepared for it, and had come to a standstill, like a stopped clock, under the shock. But after a little the machinery began to work again, tentatively, and by twos and threes the men